The History of Architecture, Part 1. In this video we will be discussing different types of architecture at different places and at different periods of time. Now, what is architecture? The Oxford Dictionary definition is about design and the construction of buildings, or of building. It's about style and substance, in other words. What it looks like and what it's made of. The other important thing to note is that architectural styles and substance are dictated by the culture and society that creates it and the time in which it is created. What is architecture for? Well, it's for building domestic dwellings, public buildings like temples, and infrastructure, such as sewers, roads, and waterways, and that kind of stuff. One of the earliest cities is Çatalhöyük in southern Anatolia, which was first constructed approximately 9,000 years ago. One thing to note about Çatalhöyük is that it consists entirely of domestic dwellings, like from before, with no public buildings and things like that at all. All entries to buildings are through the roof, and this style of sort of clumping together is seen a lot in early architecture, and you can also find it nowadays too. There are no footpaths and no streets, nothing like that. Now, whatever the reasons for this style of building are, they're entirely because of culture and society and time. The oldest known settlement is Jericho in Palestine, that was estimated to have established around 12,000 years ago. One significant difference is that it was constructed by the Natufian... I don't know how to pronounce that word, but it's on screen now. Anyway, those people, the hunter-gatherers, and therefore has a completely different style and purpose than that of Çatalhöyük. Jericho has walls, towers, public buildings, streets, and even circular buildings, but this may be because it has a much bigger population and was in a more productive area. It is very specific to the culture that it set up. Those are two of some of the many Neolithic architectural styles. Now we're going to move on to the next period of time, which is the ancient period of architecture. Some really good examples of ancient architecture are Greco-Roman and ancient Chinese architecture. Now, these two architectural styles, while in the same period of time, are completely different in their approach. We're going to start with ancient China. So Chinese buildings were built for looks, but also used in clever construction ideas. They were cleverly designed to withstand things like earthquakes and other local effects. This architecture emphasis on safety was driven by the local environmental needs. However, across the other side of the world, the Greco-Roman architectural style was a bit different. Ancient Chinese architecture used mainly wood like bamboo. However, Greek and Roman style architecture originated in stone. Later, the Romans invented a type of concrete in order to increase the speed of construction and improve efficiency. It can be said that in terms of what they left behind, the Greeks and Romans largely concentrated on public buildings and infrastructure. Neither style or emphasis is better or worse. Once more, the cultural and environmental differences appear to drive the architectural style for each group. The next period we will be looking at is the Middle Ages. Specifically, we will look at architecture from India and European areas like France. Let's start with India. So in India, the Middle Ages were a time where people were building really big things, like the Taj Mahal. During the Middle Ages in India, the emphasis was on public buildings mostly for ceremonial or religious purposes built out of rocks like marble and granite. There were, however, a significant number of private dwellings built on a grandiose size, such as the Taj Mahal, like I said earlier. In France, the tradition of making large public buildings out of stone continued. Private dwellings were constructed according to the use to which they would put and the availability of local materials. In both areas, local rather than national forces drove the various styles. These were distinctive enough so that each region's different style was readily discernible. Once more, however, the emphasis was on public buildings and infrastructure rather than private things. This means that unless a private building was part of a particular importance, it probably has not survived. These three architectural areas, as a sample, show how very clearly that what is being left behind for us to see probably overrepresents public buildings and infrastructure. This is because these things have tended to be made out of more durable materials and have a cultural significance that causes subsequent generations to want to preserve them. So that is the end of part 1. Next week I will continue with this timeline of architectural styles.